Andrew, let me be the first to wish you a happy belated birthday.
Oh,
Happy
thank
belated
you.
birthday, buddy.
Thank you.
No one else was late, right? Just me?
Day after my birthday is not my birthday, Mom.
Wait, what? Really?
No.
Okay.
That's just there's a song by Flight of the Conchords called "Hurt Feelings," and that's just one of the bits. Is the guy going, basically no one calls him on his birthday, and then one of the lines he says later is, "The day after my birthday is not my birthday, Mom." But no,
I should have known
got
it was
couple.
a reference and not a personal
It's
account
always-
of your life.
We all know that I'm just a pile of pop culture references stacked in a trench coat at this point.
Well, just so listeners know, I did tell you happy birthday on
You
your
did.
actual birthday. But we're recording the day after, so I got to make sure we get it on mic. But did you have a good one? I know you saw Superman again. Was that your second time seeing the movie?
Third. Saw it
Third.
twice
Oh, right, you
opening
saw it
night,
twice
man.
opening day. Yeah. Third
'Cause
time. Is
I'm
it still a good movie, Andrew?
Yes. It's
Okay,
quite
cool.
good. Still quite
All right.
good. No, I wanted to take Liz to see it because she did not see it when it came out 10 days ago. It was my birthday and I just wanted to do something. I didn't plan any kind of gatherings or anything. I didn't, who has the time? But
Yeah.
that's all. I was like, there was a diner near our house. Like, I just want to go get like breakfast for lunch there, and then I want to go see Superman, and then I had to go play some hockey games, and so we went to the diner. It was really nice. And then we went and saw Superman, and she really liked it. So good stuff there. Then we came home, and I went and played hockey, and I got shellacked. But it was. Superman was good. Yeah, still, she actually really, really liked it. She was like, that was really, really good.
Cool.
She liked it a lot, so that made me happy. It's kind of funny. We were talking beforehand, because I went to the movies the night before, too. I went to this mystery Scream Unseen on Monday night, which...
Mystery horror movie?
Yeah. And I was really hoping it was Weapons or Together. It was neither. It was a movie with Pete Davidson called The Home, which I had heard nothing about, really. And that one was a trip. It wasn't really what I was expecting, but...
Is it good? Was it a horror movie?
It is.
Because I know he did that... What's that movie? Bodies Everywhere or something like that?
Bodies.
Okay, of course, yeah. Bodies. Did you see that one?
I did. It was fine.
Okay.
It's... This one it's weird, and he's not really like miscast except maybe for the finale, but like it's weird. But we were driving to the movie the next day, and she's just like, "Man, I don't know how you do the movies so much." And I like, because the movie theater was like in my recent navigation in my car, and she was just like, "Oh yeah, we just went there last week," because she actually did come and see the new I Know What You Did Last Summer last week as well, when it came out, because we watch the OGs every spooky season, but I was driving back, and she's like, "Oh yeah, we were just there last week." I was like, "No, I was just there yesterday." And she was like, "I don't know how you go to the movies so much." And I was like, just detach, watch something else for 2 hours. And she's like, "Oh, that's my problem. I can't detach." And then she said after Superman, she was like, "I get it. Like, I really that was commanded her attention. She wasn't thinking about anything else while watching that movie." And I'm like, "Well, then it did its job."
That's great.
That's what you want from it. So.
I'm glad it was a happy one, Andrew. Now we have a podcast to get to, so let's do just that and bring in that theme song.
We're not talking about the best of them. We're just talking about the rest of them.
Not the worst parts, but the best parts. The best parts we have, the best of the rest.
Hello and welcome to Best of the Rest. My name is Chris Logan, and I am joined as always by my angry red co-host, Andrew Williams. Say something to the listeners, Andrew.
Something to the listeners.
Each week, we take a second look at a movie that was poorly received upon release and challenge ourselves to only talk about the things we like and what the movie does well. It's Comic Book Movie Month, and this week, we are talking the 2025 film, Captain America: Brave New World. This movie came out this year, Andrew. Nice and fresh, straight out the oven. What is your history with this film? Did you catch it in theaters earlier this year?
Yes, I did.
Once, twice, once theaters?
Just once,
But
yeah.
This is your second time seeing the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I saw it in theaters. I don't remember if it was opening weekend, but pretty early on well, I would say before anything was spoiled for me, but marketing for this movie really told you a lot.
Yeah,
But I caught it in
there's the whole
theaters.
story there, but yeah.
I enjoyed it, I will say, and then it was not hard to go back and revisit it for this episode. This was also my second time watching it, but as we probably know, it's episode of this podcast, the reception was, I don't know, lower than Marvel would hope, divisive maybe, not super well received critically. It ranks pretty. Is this the lowest rated MCU movie, Andrew?
That's a good question. It's either this or Eternals, I think. So, or no, Secret Invasion's actually probably, like, as far as if we're including anything, it's probably Secret Invasion. But let's see. I'm searching things on the internet. It's definitely the best.
Eternals is 1 point lower on Rotten Tomatoes. So let's set the stage for the movie we are talking about today. Captain America: Brave New World is released this year, February 14th, 2025. It's made on a budget of $180 million. Very fat budget there. At the box office, it brings in just over $415 million worldwide, which sounds like a decent take, but you factor in that budget, it's not that great. Critically, it is split. It holds a 48% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. Eternals sitting at a 47, so right there at the bottom of it.
I have Captain America: Brave New World at a 46 right now on Rotten Tomatoes on the actual page. So 1 point lower,
that?
Actually. So, unfortunate.
I must have pulled. Where did I get that?
It might be weird on the wiki or something.
Okay, well, fair enough. We might be talking about the lowest rated critically MCU movie today, which is
nuts.
It's just wild.
It's
You know,
crazy.
I don't. You don't like this movie, fine, but I can't imagine there's many moviegoers that would be like, "Hey, what would you guess is the lowest rated MCU movie?" That would pick this one, and then have that information and you watch it and you're like, "Huh, that's the worst one." But I mean, there's a lot. That's not the lowest Rotten Tomato score. Doesn't mean it's the worst movie. I get it. But
it is tied with Ant-Man 3 for the lowest score, I believe.
#PP. That one doesn't surprise me. Not that the score is that low, but like if you were to rate them critically, I'm not surprised at Ant-Man 3 being at the bottom. I'm a little surprised at this one being there, but we will get to it. I do want to note the audience score is 76% for Captain America, which is pretty good. I really wasn't sure which way that was going to go, but there are, definitely fans and defenders of this movie. We're going to get into it. But first, let's talk a little bit about the creative team here. The movie has quite a few credited writers. We have Rob Edwards, Malcolm Spellman, Delon Mousson, Peter Glanz, and our director. So a lot of these guys are coming from Falcon and the Winter Soldier. This top credit going to Rob Edwards. He's been in the Disney house for a while. Previously wrote on Treasure Planet as well as Princess and the Frog. It just seems to be kind of a writer's room type scenario, which is not too uncommon for the MCU. We have a lot of carryover from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which makes a lot of sense because that was the first MCU project to, I guess, star Sam Wilson. Obviously, he's been in a lot of movies before then, but he was front and center on that one. So this is a direct follow-up to that TV show. So, it makes a lot of sense to bring over that creative team.
Yeah, it does, and it also is kind of in line with kind of the latter phases of the MCU, kind of being a little bit more open. This is actually one of the criticisms that the MCU got in phases 4, 5, and 6, is that it felt like there was a lot more focus on getting, you would end up with these situations where you had multiple writers working on a project. But it also did lead to a few people kind of rising through the gaps as some new MCU kind of big focuses. Michael Waldron is probably another good example of this. He apparently is also, now working on Avengers Doomsday, which, that movie that's shooting right now. But it's a little bit, like I said, Rob Edwards has definitely got some. It's weird because he's got this Treasure Planet in 2002. Princess and the Frog in 2009, and then he jumps to 2025. A lot of television credits in the 90s, so it's very interesting career. And then, like you said, Malcolm Spellman is definitely a screenwriter with Marvel, known for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then eventually Captain America: Brave New World. Has also worked on the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air reboot. Was a writer on Empire. Delon Musan. Has a couple of video game writing credits, and then also then did Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then jumped over to this. And then, like you said, Julius Ona actually ends up getting a credit on that script as well. And then Peter Glanz, an interesting pick. Yeah, he's got his own kind of big career in various different places, so I'm kind of curious how he ended up in that circle, but who knows.
And that brings us to our director, who, like I said, also has a writing credit here, Mr. Julius Ona. Pretty early in his career still, I would say maybe the most high-profile thing before this was The Cloverfield Paradox. But before that, he also directed a movie called Loose. I assume I'm pronouncing that correct. I'm not familiar with this movie, but it does look like it was pretty critically acclaimed, starring Naomi Watts, Tim Roth in there. Let's say maybe something I need to go back and check out, but I think that's maybe what caught Hollywood's eye and kind of led to these bigger budget productions he is now on.
Supposedly Octavia Spencer, who is also in Loose, she advocated for him pretty hard. I don't remember if Octavia Spencer's was she in the Marvel thing? I don't remember, but she kind of spoke to his ability and kind of was a big advocate for him to kind of come in and work with Marvel, and it led to this, the Cloverfield Paradox. I do remember the Cloverfield Paradox coming out, and #BP disappearing almost succinctly.
The thing I remember the most about it was a Super Bowl commercial. Right. I think, was it like Stealth? Was it like the first time you heard about Super Bowl and it was on Netflix like the next day or something like that?
Like that night, I think. I think it dropped at midnight that night, I think. And I remember, because it was meant to be because we had Cloverfield, which was the monster movie that Matt Reeves made. And then we had 10 Cloverfield Lane, which was the Dan Trachtenberg movie with John Goodman and Mary Elizabeth Winstead. Tremendous. We've talked about it before, I'm sure. And then this was kind of like the third part of the Loose connective trilogy or whatever it was supposed to be, and I remember it just kind of appeared and then quickly disappeared just as succinctly. Didn't nearly make as much of an impression as either one of those did. And given the fact that was 8 years ago, shows you that Julius Ona had to kind of wasn't the breakout moment for him that people probably thought it was going to be. So, but now we're here with Captain America 4.
Yes, we are, Andrew, and it's time that we jump into this movie and talk about all the positives, everything we like about Captain America, Brave New World. Andrew, you ready?
Yeah.
After taking on the title of Captain America, Sam Wilson is invited by President Thaddeus Ross to restart the Avengers as a force for the American government. But the offer is soon rescinded when Sam's friend and super soldier Isaiah Bradley attempts to assassinate the president. Sam and his partner seek to clear Isaiah's name and prove he was brainwashed. Their investigation leads them to Samuel Stearns, a man with the gift of calculating the given odds of nearly any scenario thanks to his superhuman intelligence. Stearns has been imprisoned by Ross, who uses his abilities to gain power and promised Stearns his freedom once he won the presidency. Now that Ross has failed to follow through on his word, Stearns has launched a plan to humiliate Ross, and Captain America, as well as America, are caught in the crosshairs. I think that covers it. A lot of moving parts here, but still pretty straightforward. We kind of have... This is an interesting superhero movie where you have, like, two villains, but they're not teaming up, right?
Yeah.
You don't see that very often.
You don't. It's actually...
I don't make a bold claim that that's never happened. I'm sure it has. I'm just not thinking about it. But typically, the one hero, two villain thing's been done a lot, but usually it's a team up or ends in a team up, but that's not what's happening here.
Yeah, like, I get, like, I think Batman Returns, like, a little bit, because, like, there's a tease of, like, a team up, but then they kind of split and don't really... But then Catwoman sort of teams up with Batman at that point, so it's like it's a weird double turn, I guess. I don't know, but it is interesting because, like, so one of them is kind of a villain, like, a little unwittingly too. Like, he doesn't, Ross is not aware of what's happened to him. So in that regard, I don't know that it's first time ever, but it's definitely a unique dynamic that they don't go with very often.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to talk about that dynamic and the scenes and everything we enjoy. But first, you know what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the cast of this film, starting with the high point, best casting and best performance in the movie, because every episode we recognize one person who goes so far above and beyond the Call of Duty that they actually elevate the quality of the entire film with a performance. We recognize that person by giving them the Mark Strong Award. Andrew, kick us off here. Who is getting your Mark Strong Award for Captain America: Brave New World?
This one's interesting because I actually think there are a bunch of really fun performances in this movie. I think there are a lot of people that... I think the chemistry of this cast, especially the cast that's all primarily interacting with each other, the main three or whatever you want to call them, all work together, I think, really well. But that being said, it's the casting that I found most interesting, I think, going into this, just because it seemed odd to kind of bring him in at this point. But I will be going with Harrison Ford as Thunderbolt Ross as my Mark Strong for this movie, and also the aforementioned Red Hulk, which the worst, talk about worst kept secrets.
Yeah,
just imagine if that had actually been held back. Don't get me wrong. I think if you hold it back, we're all expecting it, like, especially if we know that, like, the leader is the villain. But, like, to actually
there's
hold
something
it
about
back,
seeing it for the first time in the context of the movie versus
Right.
putting Red Hulk's face on the poster,
And the funny part is that it was like, this movie got delayed a lot. So it was actually like a McDonald's Happy Meal campaign that spoiled it, because that revealed that the Red Hulk was in it because of the toys. And that was kind of like the first big thing where people were like, huh? And then I think maybe Funko Pops were the other thing too that spoiled it.
Yeah.
And it's just so weird to me that toys are what ultimately spoiled it, when you could have easily just been like, yeah, we planned those in the movies. And don't get me wrong, the cat's out of the bag at that point to an extent. Like, there's not a lot you can do about it. And so you can either deny it and everybody thinks you're lying, or you can just embrace it. And so they chose to embrace it. But it basically meant that you spent the whole movie it's no fault of the movies, but you could telegraph this movie from, like, the opening scene based off the trailers. It's probably one of the worst offenders of recent memory of the trailer gives away the movie, because know what it has to build to. Where it's all going.
Stearns, he keeps teasing his cryptic plan, and you know exactly what it's going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be Red Hulk. Yeah. And within 10 minutes, that's the deal. Like, the minute Ross took the pills in the beginning of the movie, I was like, yep, there it is. Yeah, like, that's... there it is. And so, that being said, Harrison Ford is probably known mostly for this little indie he did in the 70s called Star Wars, but which is not technically an incorrect statement, to be very clear. But um,
Was the New Hope
Um,
indie?
yeah, sort of. I think 20th
Okay.
Century Fox
I
releases
mean,
it.
the
but
prequels were for
the
sure.
prequels
but,
are indie. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Anyway,
You know what? You know what
but-
movie of Harrison Ford is really indie? Raiders of the Lost Ark.
you haven't even watched it, man. Go away. Um, but anyway, this was an interesting choice to me. Obviously, we've seen several Thunderbolt Rosses over the years. William Hurt, very notably, played Thunderbolt Ross starting in Incredible Hulk and then started recurring as that character throughout the later phases of the original Infinity arc, including Captain America Civil War, showed up in Infinity War, Endgame, and some of those too. But William Hurt passed away. I don't have a whole lot to say about William Hurt. If you want more
Bad guy.
information on him,
Yeah.
look up
okay,
his
that's fine.
Wikipedia and see what he did. So when you announced that Harrison Ford was stepping into this role, I was just like, oh wow, upgrade. But
Definite upgrade. I mean, all disrespect to William Hurt, but even
all
beyond that,
disrespect,
still,
love it.
still an upgrade. Even without that stuff, still like it's Harrison Ford. But Andrew, tell me if you had this thought too, right? You have an older actor that dies. It's gonna happen, but you replace him with Harrison.
An even
Ford.
older actor.
He's 8 years older than William Hurt. Aren't you like?
Good God.
I mean-
I had that exact thought. I was just like, I was like, oh, he's probably like a year or two older, maybe the same age. No, he's 8 years older. Like,
The man is in his 80s, and his spoilers, the character lives. You presumably want the option to use him again after this.
The rumor,
You're
the rumor
really-
at one point was that he was going to be in Thunderbolt. He was ultimately not in Thunderbolt. But yeah, I was like, what?
You're just really gambling, at this point. Really, I mean, I don't.
Whatever.
I don't know. I guess I don't want to do any spoilers here, but I recently watched what's that Apple Shrinking, the Apple TV show, and I'll even say before I started it, this is no spoilers. I assumed Harrison Ford's character would be in like 1 or 2 episodes and then die because one, it's Harrison Ford, and I kind of just think of him as a grumpy guy that doesn't want to work, which is pretty unfair. But also he's really old, and like you don't want to I wouldn't think you want to commit to long-term plans with an actor in their 80s. But I don't know how that works in Hollywood. I don't know if these guys have get wellness checks, and that's part of the negotiating process or contract. I really have no idea. I'm a little curious how that works.
I know that there's insurance stuff they have to do. That's what's obvious.
Yeah.
Pro wrestling fans will know that's what's hampered The Rock from actually wrestling for so long, is that when he does a movie, there's massive insurance stuff, so he can't do anything that would potentially impact the film's ability to be completed. So I'm curious if there's anything similar that they do for everybody, that they all have to do an age thing where they have to be okay, this is now required. So I don't know, but it is interesting. Presumably he will be returning. The thing about this role, and what also, obviously the fact that he's 83 just makes it feel like at any moment he could drop. That's the problem. When you get to a certain age, that's kind of the feeling, is that at a certain point it's oh well, any day now. Presumably he's in good health. Obviously he's the man never needs to do anything the rest of his life. But
More spoilers for Shrinking. You see him shirtless. Dude looks good.
looks better than I do. And I'm 50 years. I'm 45 years younger than this man. But it's so. But anyway, it is interesting. It was an interesting choice, but obviously Harrison Ford is just this legendary cinema icon at this point. So bringing him in certainly adds a little bit of that. Chris, what am I thinking of?
Gravitas. I was
No,
trying
that's
to
not
do a Harrison Ford, but it's really hard to do. Harrison Ford simultaneously sounds like he's whispering, and it's just gravelly as hell.
What are we doing here? I don't. Harrison Ford's Mark Hamill does a really good Harrison Ford impression. You should look it up. But
Okay.
it's but no, Chris, Gravitas isn't it. No, I don't know what I was thinking. No, anyway. But
Sorry to step over your joke of.
yeah, I had a great joke lined up, and you just plowed right through it, and I was like, God damn it.
Sorry.
Anyway, he's obviously a great pick, but there's an expectation, I think, a little bit that like when Harrison Ford shows up now, he's just kind of going through the motions. Now, here's what I'll say about that. One, I don't think that's true. I think a lot of his high-profile stuff recently, he has shown up. Like, I think even his one scene in Star Wars Rise of Skywalker
I was about to say that.
Makes zero sense within the context of anything that he shows up there. But the dude puts in the work for that scene.
Like,
and makes it hit.
Yes,
almost.
He didn't shave.
Almost.
But
Almost makes it like a genuine game changer. Like it's such an important scene in the movie, and he does such a good job with it. It almost makes it almost makes all that nonsense work. Almost. But Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny was a little bit similar. Like and don't get me wrong, Indiana Jones gets by on Harrison Ford just kind of going like, it's kind of Harrison Fording his way through it. It's what you expect from Indiana Jones. But there's a scene in that movie where they speak to the fate of Mutt Williams from Shia LaBeouf from Crystal Skull. And he gives this like heartbreaking monologue about what happened to him because he went to war and was killed there. And speaks to how that disintegrated his relationship with Karen Allen's character and how that just has stuck with him forever. And in the middle of this Indiana Jones movie, you're just like, whoa, bud, where did this come from? You're like, we were all having a good time. We were enjoying ourselves. You know, maybe it's not to the level of the other ones, but we're having a good enjoying time. We're all getting along here. And then suddenly you had to like just reach deep inside and pull out this like masterclass in acting for this monologue about a character nobody even likes and make it work. And make it land and make it hit in a way that everybody was just like, I have to drive home now. This is terrible. But it's so Harrison Ford is surprising that way. I think there's this, and I think it's odd because I don't know that it's warranted. Like Shrinking is another great example where like people kind of expected, just Harrison Ford being Harrison Ford, but he turns in this again great performance where you're just like, man.
I'm pretty sure he's made me cry multiple times in that show.
Oh, absolutely.
Like he's the king of grumpy, gruff old man who lets just a little bit of vulnerability show through. And when he shows you just that little bit of vulnerability, you're like, oh, my heart, like what? You just break. And then, he goes a step beyond that for some scenes of Shrinking. He really lets it out there. But, yeah, he's very good at that. And then I think there's even more layers to what he's doing here because you have the gruff exterior, a little bit of vulnerability, but also like a sinister undertone. Like when he flips the switch on Sam in the first act of this movie, like in the bunker, it's like, wow, this guy is an a-hole still. And he does it effortlessly. He plays lots of shades in this movie and all very convincingly.
That's part of what I kind of like about it too, because like, Harrison Ford has also kind of shifted into that, like, oh, he's always the good guy. He doesn't play a lot, and I wouldn't necessarily say that Ross is like a full-on like villain in the sense that like Stearns is. Obviously, he ends up being the kind of primary foe of our final climactic third act battle here. But like, there's moments in this movie where you're like, oh yeah, I hate this guy, and Harrison Ford has no problem leaning into that and doing it. And I was kind of reminded, I was like, how often does Harrison Ford play the villain? Like, if ever. Like, it's kind of like another, like, Tom Cruise question of, like, Tom Cruise has played the villain twice in his life, and it's a shame because he's so good at it. And it's just, like, getting me thinking the same thing about, like, Harrison Ford. It's just, like,
he's the bad guy in What Lies Beneath, right? Our favorite movie to bring up on this podcast.
That we've never actually watched. I don't know that he's actually the bad guy in that. That's a haunted house.
Well, he's
him and his
a
wife
bad guy. Like, he is not a good person because, like, and the whole thing, like, he cheated on his wife.
Chris, who is a good person at the end of the day?
That's a good point, Andrew.
No. Anyway, all that's to say that I think Harrison Ford is giving an above that 20-minute side note on Harrison Ford's career is all to say that I actually think he is giving. This is by no means coasting. He's putting in the work here. There's moments where he's angry. There's moments where like he's like, that's that scene with Sam, like where he just kind of tells him what's what, and he's like, "This is the deal, man." But then there's scenes like where he's like afraid, like where Stearns is on the phone and he's just like, "Whoa, like wait," like, and then
trying to reconnect with his daughter.
Yeah, the whole thing with Betty and all of that, those pieces and the vulnerability he gets to show there. That scene in the hallway where like he's slowly degenerating and Stearns is trying to goad him, but he eventually makes his way back and he stops. Like even that scene where he's basically in the hallway and I'm sure is literally on set just like straining and making his face red, like it all comes through and it all works. And it's not to say that William Hurt, again, all disrespect intended, couldn't have done it, but Harrison Ford makes it all work in a way that just seems effortless, which is the sign of great acting, I guess, is that it doesn't look like they're trying. So Harrison Ford, by no means coasting through this movie. Harrison Ford's by no means just taking the paycheck, which why would he? He doesn't need to. Like he's the man, the man's got more money than most people, than probably 99.9% of the world will ever even sniff. So he can be very discerning in the things that he does. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure the dump truck was still backed up to his house. But it comes off really good here. And despite knowing where this was going, Ford still makes it compelling. He still makes it interesting. And when it does happen, there's still a bit of a moment of just like, oh man, it's actually happened. I'm actually watching Harrison Ford turn into the Red Hulk, which the fact that we have Red Hulk in a movie is interesting because he is a more recent character within the last 20 years. I'd say that recently, like that matters. Like I remember when Red Hulk debuted.
I mean, does he predate the MCU or is it post MCU?
Probably right around the same time, actually. Red Hulk was a big mystery within. So Red Hulk was Hulk 1 in January 2008, so right before.
Okay.
And it was interesting because Thunderbolt, the Red Hulk was kind of like this big mystery. Nobody knew who the Red Hulk was. That was the log line of the book, basically, is who is the Red Hulk. And from moment one, everyone went, it's Thunderbolt Ross. And then they went to great pains to make it seem like it wasn't Thunderbolt Ross. And then they dropped a lot more clues, and everybody was like, yeah, it's Thunderbolt Ross. And then they kept denying that it was Thunderbolt Ross, but everyone was like, yeah, but it's Thunderbolt Ross. And then they finally revealed it, and everyone was like, yeah, we told you, it was Thunderbolt Ross. Like, it was one of those mysteries that just wasn't interesting or compelling or at all mysterious. Like, and I remember when Red Hulk showed up, like, the first several issues are just him bodying the Avengers, like, one by one. Like, it was this super OP character, and this is Jeff Loeb post the peak of his career. This was when he kind of left DC in 05-06 and went over to Marvel and did a bunch of high-profile stuff. Like, he did Hulk, he did Wolverine.
Ultimatum.
3, and Ultimatum.
Yeah.
If you want a 1-2 punch, Ultimates 3 into Ultimatum is...
Oof.
But
you also look at what coincides with his change in quality, and it's like, well, it's hard to judge.
It's hard to judge. But that was what was interesting to me about everybody being like, oh, I wonder if they're going to do Red Hulk. I was like, wait, do we like Red Hulk now? I was like, when did that happen? Like, this wasn't like Winter Soldier, where like the Winter Soldier story in the Marvel Comics was like very lauded. People loved that story. It was really, really good and very highly critically received. And so when we had this sudden like, oh man, they're going to do Red Hulk, I was like, do we want them to do Red Hulk? Like, is that, are we wanting this to happen? Because I don't feel like we do, but I also haven't kept up with Red Hulk. I know a variety of people have written the character since, so there's probably some interesting Red Hulk stories now. But like, just obviously the dynamic of like Thunderbolt Ross becoming the thing he sought to exterminate. There's a ton of story potential there. So like, I certainly think that's an interesting path to take, and we'll see. I can't presume we've seen the last of Red Hulk in the MCU, but that's kind of the benefit, is that like Ford doesn't have to do any of the physical stuff. Like, you can just show up, be Thunderbolt Ross, and then paste his face on a red CGI model, and boom, there you go.
Yeah, or God forbid, knock on wood, Harrison Ford does die one day. CGI Red Hulk can still show up depending on how they, write it. So maybe that's part of the thought process. But yeah, me and Harrison Ford, oh boy, we haven't always seen eye to eye. Me not always liking his movies, him not knowing who the hell I am. It's been a roller coaster, but I just, for the longest time, I guess I'll say it as I just never really got Harrison Ford. I didn't think he was particularly bad, but also didn't understand why he was Harrison Ford. Han Solo's cool. I guess like Indiana Jones never really been my thing, and then growing up in the 90s, he's like,
Chris, how do you know it's not your
star.
thing? You've never watched it.
I've never sat down and watched Raiders of the Lost Ark from beginning to end. That is true, Andrew. I've never made it to the end. I've seen enough scenes that I feel like I've seen it, but I've seen enough to say that I don't think it's my thing. Look, it's been a long time. Maybe I'll go back and I'll revisit them.
You like Uncharted?
I'll keep you posted. It's fun.
Do you like Uncharted?
The game?
You like Uncharted?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, then watch the thing they ripped off, man.
I just watched, for our family movie night this week, we watched The Mummy, which...
Watch the thing that's ripping off.
Yeah. Oh, 1940 serials, Andrew? That's what I should watch? Action adventure serials?
I hate you.
All right. In the 90s, he's doing, action stuff and thrillers and spy thrillers, and I don't know. I just never really clicked. But I will say, and then he kind of gets his reputation for being, grumpy, and he appears on late night shows and looks like he doesn't want to be there, and people think that he just doesn't even like acting potentially, which is probably never true. But I do think maybe something changed in more recent years. I'm no Harrison Ford historian. I don't know if I could confidently say he ever slept walk or phoned in any performances, but these recent performances that we're talking about, I think he's genuinely invested, showing up, turning it on, and I like listening to his interviews now. I've heard him on a few podcasts, and I think he's great. He sounds like a grumpy old man. He was on Conan's podcast probably a year or two ago, and literally the opening interview, he's like, "Can I cuss on this podcast?" Conan's like, "Yeah." He goes, "Okay, fuck you."
Yeah,
it's like how he opens the interview.
I think the question is, he's like, "What can you say on a podcast?" And he's like, "Anything you want." And he's like, "Okay, fuck you."
That's it. It's so good.
I want to say this too. I think that when Blade Runner 2049 came out, and that was a big thing for us, Blade Runner fans, that we were actually getting a Blade Runner sequel, and that he was in it, and that he was going to be doing the full everything. That was a big deal. And I remember it leading into that, coming into Blade Runner 2049, we had The Force Awakens, but before that it was Expendables 3 and Anchorman 2 and a lot of weird I guess if there's a place where maybe he's phoning it in, it's Anchorman 2. But
hot take, Andrew. Harrison Ford really phoned it in Anchorman 2.
The movie where everybody phoned it in.
I think
Cowboys
Will
and
Smith
Aliens,
was really
stuff like
sleepwalking
that.
through Anchorman 2, Andrew.
Oh God. I hate you. But when he did Blade Runner 2040, he does Force Awakens, which I think is fine. There's another couple of moments there where you're just like, oh yeah, there it is.
And again, the whole thing is Harrison Ford agreed to do Star Wars again if they killed his character in the first movie, which I don't know if that's true or not, but that's kind of the word on it.
The rumor I heard was that also for Force Awakens, he was like, I'll do Force Awakens, but we need to do Indiana Jones 5. That was another condition, apparently, was that he really wanted to go back to do Indiana Jones. And I remember when Blade Runner 2049 was coming out, he had done Star Wars and Blade Runner, and then Indiana Jones was on the docket, and somebody asked him at a convention, they were like, is it just your intention to go and revisit all of your characters at this point? And he went, you bet your ass it is. He had no qualms about being yeah, it is. So anyway, Blade Runner 2049, that was another one where he easily could have just been the fact that he's actually the MacGuffin for that movie, basically, or the misdirect. I think Finding Deckard being such an integral part of it, and then it's another thing where like it would have been easy for him to just kind of show up and be Harrison Ford and just kind of go. But then there's moments where like again you're just like, oh yeah, like you're just good at acting. It turns out.
Yeah,
and it turns out that like even when Harrison Ford isn't necessarily like doing something like super intense, he's given it everything he's got, and this movie's no exception. So that's a now 30-minute aside on Harrison Ford that I think we can move on from.
Oh yeah, I got one more.
Anyway,
Andrew.
Great stuff.
Do you think whenever like he met with Marvel and Kevin Feige, they were like, "All right, listen, Harrison, we want to bring you into the MCU, and in your first movie, you're gonna be Red Hulk." And Harrison Ford went, "What's a Hulk?"
Well, the joke for a long time was somebody asked Harrison Ford if he was going to be Red Hulk, and he went, "What's a Red Hulk?"
He did say that. He literally said, "You're right. I did see that." Yeah.
Yeah, you're just man. You're just nothing.
I thought
there,
I was
man.
being clever. I was probably just remembering something.
You're right. Yeah, you're probably just remembering the fact that he said it. But yeah,
Andrew, if you're a betting man, has Harrison Ford seen an MCU film?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, for Shrinking, he went and watched Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and then told the guys to say Jason Segel had a nice penis. But it's
That's great.
So I presume that yes, he's probably seen something from the MCU at this point, even if it was like by accident. He does have like a relatively young kid, like not I don't remember, I don't know how young, but like he because he's married to Calista Flockhart, who is significantly younger than him, but she's like 60 and he's 83, so there's like a 23-year age gap, but they got married in 2010 when she was like 46, so I guess it's fine. Like it's one of those like there's an age gap, but they met so late into her life. I guess it's one of those things where it's like I guess this is fine. They had a kid in he had a kid in 2001. I mean, he's got a kid that's 24 now, so I can only assume that if you have a young kid in the late 2000s, you're certainly taking them to see Marvel movies. So yeah,
man, I'm on his wiki now. Look at that earring. I had no idea.
Oh yeah, that dude's hip. He knows what's up.
All right, Andrew. Yeah, Harrison Ford, he's a good actor. I guess we could have just said that. But
no,
I think he's particularly good in this movie. I think that's a great pick. But Andrew, I'm going somewhere else with my Mark Strong award. Thinking back on this movie, I thought I knew who I was going to give it to. I watched it again. I was like, yeah, that's my Mark Strong award winner. I'm giving it to Carl Lumbly as Isaiah Bradley. Man, I love this performance. I can't say I'm super familiar with Carl's work, as he's been a working actor for quite some time. But to be honest with you, probably wasn't until Falcon the Winter Soldier that I took notice of this guy, where he first played this character. I thought he was great in that show. #BP. I didn't love the show as a whole, but he was certainly a standout. And I think he one-ups it here with his performance. I wish the character was in more of the film. It's mainly the first half, maybe the first third. But he makes such an impression. I love that they set him up as this, gruff trainer type that's not going to go easy on him. He's got a good friendship with Sam. And his character was given the super soldier serum by the government, just like Steve Rogers. But instead of being a hero, after his missions, they kept him prisoner and ran tests on him. And, it's something that, obviously, this is all fictional. We don't have super soldiers, but you can imagine for a second, if we did, this would be a outcome. His story is pretty in line with our country's treatment of Black people, which is certainly a running theme through Falcon the Winter Soldier as well as this film. But because of those events, he does not like the government, Andrew. He's not a big fan of the president either, and he's very hesitant for Sam Wilson to be going to the White House and being buddy-buddy with Thaddeus. So it's all the more tragic whenever he is framed for the assassination attempt. And Andrew, we'll get to it more in scenes, but whenever he is scared, whenever we see like this one of the strongest men on the planet who's, lived a long life, frightened about returning to prison, oh man, it breaks your heart. And I like this movie. Plenty of positive to say about it, but I wish we had more of this emotional pull throughout the movie. Like I said, they kind of wrap his story up pretty early on, then he comes back in the end, but it's some of my favorite parts of the movie are his scenes, so I've got to give him that Mark Strong Award.
This is a fantastic pick. Carl Lumbly, like you say, he's a very, very prominent character actor. I mean, looking at his filmography, is a lot of television stuff in the 80s into the 90s. I actually did know him because he was the voice of Martian Manhunter on the Justice League cartoons for a very long time. The 01 to 04, and then on Justice League Unlimited, and then in all that varying kind of related to kind of related media, including some of the movies and some of the other stuff. He even gets to play, I think, kind of a live action version of the character on the Supergirl TV show. Basically gets to play like the live action version of, that's basically, I think, the father of John Jones. So that was kind of a cool full circle thing to get to see him do that. He also took over the role of Dick Halloran in Doctor Sleep, the 2019 Lega sequel thing to The Shining that Mike Flanagan did. Obviously, that character was created by, or rather brought to prominence by Scatman Crothers in the original Shining film. So they brought in Carl Lumbly to take over that role in Doctor Sleep. And that's, again, I was like, this is a fantastic choice. This is a fantastic pick. It's just a couple of scenes, but he punches it up. He brings in all the right aspects of the character dealing with adult Danny, and I just thought that was a really good pick. And then he was actually also recently in Mike Flanagan's Fall of the House of Usher series, where he plays kind of a version of Auguste Dupin, who is kind of the star of what many consider to be one of the first pieces of detective fiction in the Murders of the Rue Morgue. So they do a flip on the character, and he kind of plays this person that the lead character is kind of giving his life story to. But anyway, anytime I see Carl Lumbly on my screen, I think he's doing a fantastic job. Obviously, he is much older now. I think he's 73. So despite that, getting your flowers in your 70s, maybe not the best path, but I'm glad that he's getting them now. I'm glad that people are kind of seeing his talent, and it is fantastic. This is a great pick. I think the Isaiah Bradley character is very interesting. I like the kind of shift they made with the character, kind of moving him to the Korean War versus originally where he's kind of it's also World War II for him in the comics, because originally the character wasn't meant to be canon. And what ends up happening is after Steve Rogers, they try to recreate that serum, and they kind of have to start from scratch. And so they used African-American men as test subjects, kind of calling in comparisons to the Tuskegee syphilis study and things like that. And then eventually they found a place to kind of put the character in between. And he's kind of got this legacy within the MCU. Like, he's like known, where he is like this underground legend in a lot of ways, where like, he's at the wedding of Storm and Black Panther, and he's considered this like guest of honor, and people in the audience are like shocked to see him because he's almost a myth to a lot of people. So the character carries this kind of very interesting legacy within the MCU, or within the Marvel Universe, and to see that transferred to the MCU in such a way to kind of slowly build his legacy kind of in real time, I think that's a very interesting way to do it. And I think Carl Lumbly is a fantastic person to bring that to life.
Andrew, let's talk about the star of this movie, our main character, our Captain America. Anthony Mackie plays Sam Wilson. Now, Andrew, there's often times where we have a movie like this that's like has a big, obvious star, and you and I go other places with the Mark Strong Award, it can maybe be inferred that we're not high on the main actor. I'll say for me, that's certainly not the case here. I love Anthony Mackie and everything he's in. I love him as Sam Wilson. I think he's continuing to kill it. And I think in part, we're kind of just taking him for granted a little bit at this point because we've seen him do so well, this character, for so long. And they just surrounded him with tons of great talent in this movie. I mean, this is so well cast, and it's murder's row here. But I think he's continuing to be great. He's so likable. He's so charismatic. He makes it look so effortless. I think he's very good at what I'll describe as carrying the weight as not only the shield, but the themes of race in this movie as well, but not to the point where he's overly wrought or emotional or I don't know, not bogged down. He's still a bright, optimistic hero. He's still Captain America. And he has his moments of doubt and vulnerability. I think of the scene with Bucky. But ultimately, we'll get to it in scenes, but I like how the final conflict is settled. I like how he's able to do that with more of his words versus his fist or physical gifts. Anthony Mackie is he's great.
Anthony Mackie's Captain America is like, quickly rising on the list of characters where I'm just like, I would feel awful if I disappointed this man. I just know that like he's gonna look at me and I'm gonna be like, oh man, like oh man, what have I done? Geez. I like they've taken that path. The character, it was a Falcon and Winter Soldier. There was a big moment at the end where like he kind of speaks to this situation as far as like he speaks to that idea that like this group isn't born out of nothing. And the key is stopping those situations from happening again and again and again, continuing this cycle. And so he wants to believe in people. He wants to believe in our potential. Bob Ross type energy there. So I like that about the character a lot. It's what I've always liked about characters like Captain America, characters like Superman. This just idea that, there's this inherent goodness that doesn't have to be driven by any necessary like higher calling. It's actually why like Barry Allen, the Flash, used to be a lot like that. He was this police scientist that got turned into the Flash and became a superhero. And then when they rebooted him in Flash Rebirth in 2008, 7 or 8, he came back in Final Crisis. They added this tragic backstory of the character. They added this like his mom got killed by Professor Zoom and framed his father for it. And I was like, oh man, like why'd you Batman him? Like, come on, like you didn't have to do that. Like, and it just took what was this wholesome character who was just a superhero because he knew it was the right thing to do with his powers, and it added this like dark origin and this inherent like drive for justice, which like in a new character, whatever, I understand, but it's like you didn't have to do it that way. Like Green Lantern is chosen by the Green Lantern Corps, stuff like that. I get it. Batman, obviously, his quest for justice is born out of, his parents dying and wanting to prevent that sort of thing from happening again. And like, but with a character like Superman, like he's sent here to do good and he does these things. But like the Flash was very similar. And then they had to go add those weird layers to it. And so Sam Wilson as Captain America but embodying that same energy. And like, he's been Captain America in the comics as well. So this was a natural progression. It's one of those things where like people get annoyed when they pass mantles off to other characters because they're like, it's always temporary. And I'm like, yeah, but whatever. But like Falcon's a character that's existed for decades before he ever became Captain America. And so it was one of those things that like, to me, just makes perfect sense. It's like when Wally West became the Flash or when Dick Grayson becomes Batman or whatever. Like these are characters that have been adjacent to these main guys for decades. And so when there needs to be somebody to step in, Makes perfect sense. Not to say that a new character can't do that, like Kyle Rayner as Green Lantern or whoever, but Sam Wilson, I think, is a great example of taking it in a different direction. And I think Anthony Mackie does a really good job of bringing that to the screen.
And, of course, he is joined by his partner, Joaquin Torres, the new Falcon, as played by Danny Ramirez, reprising the role from the TV show. And they have a believable buddy back and forth repartee, however, whatever the appropriate word is, just put it in there. I like their banter. There's obviously a point where Joaquin goes down in battle, and you can kind of feel that Sam is taking on the weight of that as his mentor and the guilt, and it's there's obviously a lot of shades here with this relationship to Steve and Sam, as well as, plenty of other mentor type relationships across the MCU and really all of storytelling. But I like that he has a partner. I like that he's not out there solo, and I think their chemistry is great. And obviously we'll be seeing more from Joaquin as Falcon. Hopefully he gets a more interesting Falcon suit. It's very boring green. I suspect the next time we see him, it's going to be decked out a little bit, huh? What do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, I think so. You got to give him a little bit more to work with than the kind of almost military colors and style. You got to give a little bit of color in there. I think this is another one where you're bringing in somebody kind of new to the dynamic. He was originally with Walker in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I believe. And then obviously at the end of that show when Walker did what Walker did, and we kind of end up with this new dynamic of Sam Wilson working with Joaquin, and I think they have a really good chemistry here. That was one of the movie things I noticed when watching the movie originally. Was I'm just like, man, these guys work really well together. There's a good connection that works between them. You believe that Sam's devastated when he gets caught in the crossfires, despite being seemingly a recent friendship, but it all comes off really naturally, works really well, and both of them will be back in Avengers Doomsday. So, cool. As well as like every other actor in the history of the world. But
yeah, half of Hollywood's in that movie. All right, Andrew. Shira Haas plays Ruth Bat-Seraph. I think I'm saying the whole name right. I don't even think they say her whole name in the movie, but this is an interesting one. I like the performance. I like the character. You see her on screen, and this is an interesting looking person, as I like to say. They look like they stand 4 feet tall, but they're believable as the head of security and in their action scenes. And you're kind of just wondering the whole time, what is this person's deal? I definitely want to see more from them. But I feel like the movie never quite turns that switch where they click into place and you're like, oh, I see where they fit in. Now, I don't want to get sidetracked too much with like the rewrites of this movie, but you can go online to see like the changes they made. A lot of stuff during production, after production, during reshoots. They shot like a movie and a half, really, all told. Pretty wild. But this is a character from the comics. In the comics, she is a mutant. She's in sort of that corner of the Marvel universe. Here, they give her a different backstory by saying she's a former Black Widow. There's also a scene where you see her in her costume, and they kind of just don't acknowledge it. A costume that's very similar to her comic book costume. Presumably, some things changed with this character as far as how close she was going to be to her comic book counterpart. But like I said, I'm not saying this as a bad thing, but it never really takes off as who this character is. I do like the way they're used, but I expect they will be more diving into this character maybe in the future. But I think she's kind of just a mysterious part of the puzzle here.
The history of this movie is very interesting because obviously I mentioned earlier that like a toy ad for McDonald's spoiled Red Hulk. And like that was like a full year before the movie came out because this movie got delayed a lot. This movie was originally supposed to come out. It ultimately does come out February 14th, 2025, Valentine's Day. Bummer. But it was supposed to come out May 3rd, 2024. So a full 10 months before that. And then it got pushed to July 2024 before it finally got pushed to February 2025 due to the SAG-AFTRA strike. And so, which was the actors' strike, to be clear, not the writers' strike. But it is a lot's come out about the movie's changes. Like, we know there were whole like Seth Rollins, WWE superstar Seth Rollins, was in this movie at one point and is nowhere to be seen in the final cut. This very much
set photos of him in like a comic book costume,
and he's
crazy.
Nowhere to be found. They did a lot of reshoots. They did, Mark Ruffalo stated that he was in the film at one point. It was just a lot of stuff that changed, a lot of stuff that moved around to the point that a lot of people, like you said, have said essentially that they reshot the whole movie. Definitely feels like a little bit like a Justice League situation where we came in at the 11th hour, but in this case it was the original groups mostly doing it. And there's a lot of reasoning behind that, probably why that happened. But I don't know. It's one of those things where I know they react to test audiences a lot, but the test audiences didn't want Superman saving a squirrel either, so what do they know?
Giancarlo Esposito was in this movie, Andrew. And he's not one of the main villains, but he is ever since, I don't know, Breaking Bad for sure, but anything he shows up in now, he is just he can never not be a villain or a bad guy. Yeah. He shows up in Poker Face season 2. Yep. And at first, it looks like maybe he's not playing that guy. They're like, oh yeah, nope, it's Giancarlo. Yep, that's what he does. There he is.
There you are.
He's good at it. I mean, this isn't a bad thing, but I think he really found his calling in that Breaking Bad role. Obviously he's Mandalorian, playing a bad guy. Yeah, he's a bad guy and everything, and he's great. He's definitely like a mini boss, to use video game terms. He's never positioned as the big bad, but he's kind of just caught up. He's a pawn in the leader's game. Ultimately, he's got 2 big scenes. He's got a big fight scene with Sam, and then sort of their agreement they make after that as he trades some information on the leader. But he's great. It's almost like, other than saying, yeah, he's great at playing a bad guy, I don't know what else to say about him. He's good at that. He's doing that thing that he's good at. He's doing it here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. He's playing a version of the character Sidewinder, who is the head of the terrorist group Serpent, which is a big flip because originally the Serpent Society was going to be the main villains, and Sidewinder is a character almost completely added in reshoots, which is why he's only in 3 scenes. But I don't know what else to say, but he's actually in Maxine. And he plays Maxine's kind of agent, and he's actually he treats her super well at that. It was a little odd because you're kind of waiting for the flip where you're like, oh yeah, Maxine, for those of you who don't know, is the 3rd installment in the Ty West X trilogy.
Oh, you mean Maxine?
Maxine, as I say it. No. So he plays her agent and almost a fixer, and it's kind of wild that she's getting Kevin Bacon is in that movie as this sleazy New Orleans private investigator, and my God, it's a movie where I'm Kevin Bacon needs to do a whole movie of this character. He needs I want to watch the sleazy Kevin Bacon PI movie yesterday. I want that in my life. But if you've seen the movie, that's not really possible. But he actually genuinely watches out for her and genuinely makes sure that she's okay and helps her deal with stuff. And it's oh wow, I'm just waiting for you to be the jerk, and it's strange when you turn out that you're not. I wasn't prepared to actually be oh wow, good for you, man. But he's great. It's just a couple of scenes here, and he brings everything that he needs to.
Tim Blake Nelson returning to the MCU from The Incredible Hulk, a movie that more than some people have totally forgot about, and even more people have forgot that Tim Blake Nelson was in it and is visibly seen turning into the leader there. I think it's super cool that the MCU came back around and paid this character off in a pretty organic way. Like, I think it fits perfectly. Like, we know, and they're not pretending otherwise, that this was not the planned follow-up to what they did with that character, but they worked it in brilliantly. I think it's great to see him back. Tim Blake Nelson is just a great actor. Alum of the show. I know we talked about him back on Fantastic. I love him anytime he shows up. Big fan of him and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? And everything. Is he in, am I remembering this right, Andrew? Is he in the beginning of Heavyweights? Is that him?
He is. Roger Johnson.
For like 30 seconds? Yeah.
He's the guy who sells, he's the guy that comes and makes like the sell to Jerry's family about
shows them the VHS about the camp, yeah.
Islanders, team of the future, I say. Yeah, like all of his dialogue is just in my brain. Like he sees the go-karts and he's like, careful, they can get addicting. Like the dude like has like the sales pitch like down, and he's been doing it probably for years. But no, he is. Yeah, so I was gonna say a love of the show for that. I actually forgot that he was in Fantastic.
His role as Samuel Stearns as the leader, which I don't think they get around to naming him that, but that's who he is. You know what the dynamic is, Andrew? Would you say it's comparable to The Dark Knight? The Joker and Two-Face aren't working together, but the Joker creates Two-Face and sort of sets him loose on the city?
I guess.
Is that another example of a comic book movie with two villains that aren't teaming up?
More yes than no, I'd say. Yeah.
Okay. This movie is The Dark Knight, is what I'm saying.
It's basically if you take the words The Dark Knight and you rearrange them, change the letters, add a few more that are missing, get rid of one or two, you've got Captain America: Brave New World.
There you go.
Right there. But
this is another example that Tim Blake Nelson has said in interviews that all of his scenes were shot twice because they decided to change his appearance. They were going to do the comic book appearance with the big old head, and they said, go a different direction.
Go ahead, sorry.
Were you say that you don't mind the way he ends up looking?
I don't mind how he ends up looking, but I've actually seen some of the mock-ups of how he was going to look, and I wouldn't have minded that either. But
sure,
like the weird, like gamma irradiated looking face and everything, I actually think that's fine. It works. And it obviously you can open it up to more if you want. This kind of like, and I'm going to go ahead and mention that Liv Tyler is also briefly in this movie. Maybe.
Which is cool.
The first time I saw her scene, I was like, is she actually there? But like, this is another one where like she had other scenes that when they reshot the movie, they had to then rejig the way that she did things. Like there was a funeral scene that I think she was supposed to be at, and that funeral scene is not in this movie, the final movie, so they had to kind of rejig that. So she ends up meeting Ross at the raft. But by bringing back Tim Blake Nelson and Liv Tyler at this point, basically you've essentially closed all the loops from The Incredible Hulk, except maybe Doc Samson. That's possibly the only place you could go, but the movie also doesn't tease anything with Doc Samson like it does with the leader. Ty Burrell, for those of you who don't remember, plays Leonard Samson, who's dating Betty at the beginning of the movie, and he eventually becomes a gamma hero named Doc Samson. They don't really dive into it, not in the sense that they do with like Tim Blake Nelson as the leader. But we brought back Tim Blake Nelson. Obviously, William Hurt already returned as Thunderbolt Ross before this. Liv Tyler coming back, and Tim Roth has already come back several times as Abomination at this point. And so I do think it's cool that for a movie that was seen largely as kind of the, pardon the expression myself, the redheaded stepchild of the MCU, it's been nice to see all that stuff kind of come full circle and actually get some kind of close off. And like Doc Samson, like by no means is that something that they ever need to actually go back to because, like I said, the movie never. I don't even know if the movie even says that his last name is Samson. It's that kind of thing where like I don't know if the movie ever actually draws that line. And
I remember
obviously
Ty
there's
Burrell was in the movie. I had no idea he was like a named character,
Yeah,
like
he's
a
supposed to
comic
be.
book character. That's interesting.
And,
Andrew, yes or no? Does Edward Norton show up in Secret Wars?
No,
Okay.
not for lack of trying, but because he doesn't want to.
Yeah, I can see that.
To be
Marvel's
clear,
got a lot of money,
that's it. Marvel does have a lot of money, and if all he's got to do is show up for 40 seconds, I guess that's all that matters. But no, I would not bank on Edward Norton, if only because I guess he's technically supposed to be playing the same character Mark Ruffalo is. But
Yeah, I think you probably have a better chance of Eric Bana showing up, huh?
yeah, you would. And even then, I don't know that he would do it either. I really don't know how wild they're going to go with Secret Wars because it could be a lot of people. I do think like the big names will be there. I think all the Spider-Men will be there. I think Jackman will be there. I think you'll get that money shot of like the past 27, 8 years of superheroes, of Marvel superheroes all on screen, like together. Like
those Marvel posters you can buy at the store. That's like
yeah, but like you're gonna have Maguire and Garfield and Jackman and all of them. They're all gonna be there. You're gonna get that money shot. There's no
that'd
way
be
they won't
nuts.
do it.
That's gonna be nuts.
And like, I'll tell you this: is it gonna be fan service? Yes, but here's what I want you to consider: 70% of Avengers Endgame is fan service, and it's fine. Fan service is not inherently bad. But yes, I will. Will it hit like Endgame did? Probably not, but it's still going to be really cool.
Boy, this is a deep cast, Andrew. But I think we've covered the main players, the cameos, the small parts. Maybe we can go back and talk about it as we talk about scenes. But I think it's time we do just that. Talk about the scenes of this movie, starting with the best scene of the film, or at least our personal favorite. So, Andrew, in your opinion, when is this movie firing in all cylinders? What is the best scene of Captain America: Brave New World?
What I'm going to be going with is kind of our standoff over what they're calling, I guess, Eternal Island. What do they call that thing? I forget. Celestial Island?
The Celestial. Yeah, what is the name of it? I know they refer to it as a Celestial, but
I think they call it Celestial Island, which is another interesting closing of a loop on something where Celestial Island, yes. So
Yeah.
I actually think this is another interesting moment of like the MCU closing off something, because after Eternals, the fact that a Celestial tried to birth itself from Earth and it was stopped. Like, I remember for a while my friends were like, are they ever going to acknowledge this? Like, how are they not talking about this?
yeah,
Like, how is the world not talking about the fact that there's a hand coming out of the ocean? And I was like, I mean, I'm sure they'll get there. And they did. So, it's kind of funny that Brave New World and Thunderbolts are this kind of like 1-2 punch of like, oh, you're mad that we haven't come back to all of these dangling plot threads? Here you go. And they just like finish off like 8 of them between the two movies. But I like this whole sequence because you're getting Captain America and Falcon. It's like kind of they're doing like, trying to hold off this conflict from escalating. So there's a lot of tension in the air. There's a lot of, Harrison Ford back in like, commanding military presence. And so you've got Falcon and Captain America trying to stop this conflict from escalating. So you're getting tons of action with them battling against these fighter jets in the backdrop of a Celestial, which just a cool visual. But then on the flip side of this, you have Stearns inside Ross's head trying to get him to transform for the first time. And so you've got this escalating conflict outside that's ratcheting up the tension. You've got Ross already agitated by all of this, and then he's getting egged on by Stearns. So he's sitting in this hallway, you see his arms and his legs start to like bulge, where like the transformation's coming and it's happening. And I'm sure, again, objectively, this was a silly thing to film, to basically be like, pretend you're transforming into the Hulk. But I think Harrison Ford makes that danger very real. And he makes that all work really well. And then having kind of Sam and Falcon both be up top doing Captain America things, trying to de-escalate the situation and hold everything at bay. It's just a lot of moving pieces. And eventually we find out that this was Ross's master plan. Or rather, this was Stern's master plan for Ross, was to get him to transform here and basically escalate this situation needlessly as the Red Hulk in this conflict. And they are able to stop that, which is what leads to the later conflict at the White House. But this whole sequence, I think it's really, really good. This is where Falcon gets caught in the crossfires and gets hurt, and Sam just this, eventually leads to a really good scene after this that I won't quite try to tack onto this, even though I could. But just so I'm going with this kind of Indian Ocean standoff between Japan and the United States, with Stern's plan coming into full effect, putting these pilots against each other, trying to get Ross to transform. So you've got Harrison Ford really bringing it in this kind of weird, almost meltdown situation. You've got Captain America and Falcon kind of doing what they do best with these escalating tensions with a really cool backdrop. And it's comic book stuff, man. I love to see it.
This is an excellent pick, Andrew. I think it's a pretty thrilling action sequence, and they give us that expanded ratio. All of the stuff in the Indian Ocean is the full IMAX, or as close as our TVs can get to IMAX ratio. You see the black bars pop on whenever we have Harrison Ford on the ship, but anytime we're up in the air, we got that expanded ratio, which it gets me every time. I love to see it. I love this trend, I guess we can call it, in action movies, and I think it's all really well done. I love that, like you said, they are de-escalating the situation. Stern, using his brainwash mind control thing, has caused 2 American pilots to open fire on the Japanese ships. The Japanese fighters are attempting to retaliate, but Captain America and Falcon's mission is to convince them that it was an accident, convince them they got it under control, I guess. Like, they are just trying to, as I said, not escalate the fight, not send more fighters into the air, and show Japan that they are trying to bring these 2 planes down on their own. I do wonder what Japan must be thinking but during all this, because they don't know about the brainwashing, but it's a tense situation, as you said, Andrew. And this, if you think about it, this is Sam Wilson's superpower. I mean, de-escalation. That's kind of what he's done since the first time we saw him on screen, and they do it a lot. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's the sort of the climax of that series, and we see it several times here. And I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty good quality for a Captain America to have. But beyond that, the action itself is thrilling. I love all the fight. I love all the flight sequences. I think they all look great. Redirecting the missile, it's very reminiscent of like Iron Man and the first Avengers movie. It's all good, Andrew. I think it's a great pick, and I do think this is like the best action scene of the movie. No offense to Red Hulk fight at the end, we'll get to it, but I think the action climax is here during this scene. For my favorite scene, I'm going to take it a different direction. Maybe it's no surprise based on stuff I've said in this episode already, but I'm going to go back to the assassination attempt. Just the White House visit in general. I like that, we have Isaiah Bradley invited to this event by Sam, and from there's this small little moment. I love the choice that Carl Lumbly makes here. When they arrive at the White House, they all get out of the limo, and Sam's like, hey, turn around and pose. And they all 3 of them turn around to pose for pictures. Captain America, Sam Wilson is used to this kind of thing, and he's posing and waving, and Carl just does this little nervous wave, his hand doesn't even barely go above his waist. He's like, yeah, hi, just clearly uncomfortable.
Stop looking at me.
He plays it so well. So when we get to the point where the music plays and he pulls out, or he steals a gun to try to shoot Harrison Ford, and then instincts kick in and he takes off running, So we kind of have 3 phases here, I guess. We have him like uncomfortable at the White House, him brainwashed, where he is just like full super soldier for a moment. You know, he's running down the hall. I love when he throws that table backwards, like with one hand, jumps through a window, takes off running through Washington, D.C. And then by the time they catch up to him, he's sort of back to just being Isaiah Bradley at that point. And he's genuinely scared. And this is the part that like breaks my heart. It's the reason he's been Mark Strong Award winner. And it's the reason like I am hooked on this movie so early on. Like this is so well done. We have no idea what's happening as far as like why he tried to make the assassination attempt, who's behind it, et cetera, et cetera. We got a good mystery going. But this performance here, where he has tears in his eyes and he's scared and he's confused, and I make sure I got the line here. He says, like, through tears, I can't go back inside, Sam. Like, pleading with Sam, like, don't let them take me to prison. And that's, of course, what happens. He has to turn himself in. And, dude, it's rough. Like, it's heartbreaking. But I am so in on this movie here. And just like you, I also want to tack on the prison interview scene, but I'll stop it here. But that is also great. But yeah, the White House sequence I think just sets the events of this movie into motion, and I am hooked from this moment.
You left out the most important part of this whole thing, man. That they reveal adamantium. Yeah. That is one of the biggest. I guess you could call it sort of a MacGuffin of this movie. The opening heist foiling of a heist scene is them recovering an adamantium sample, which is what the celestial, apparently, I guess the celestial body is essentially, they refine what it's made of into adamantium. And so that's kind of the general gist of this whole treaty and conflict, is kind of figuring out who owns this and how it's going to work and all of that. And that's what this, meeting is about, this event. And then ultimately just, I like how Carl Lumbly plays this. I like how they present his character here, where like, he's in his 70s, but man, he's unfazed. Like the dude can still, like, he throws this giant marble table like it's nothing, jumps through windows. Like, it's fun. The juxtaposition of him like jumping through a window 30 feet up, hitting the ground and running away while Sam has to come down the stairs. Like, Sam just being like, "Hey, wait!" It reminds me a little bit. There was an episode of the Justice League where they got turned into kids, and all of them fly/run away except for Batman, because he can't do any of that, and he just kind of slowly jogs after them, and he's like, "Hey, it's not a race," but like it's just that idea of like, "Hey, one of these things isn't like the other," but it's and then, like you said, when he gets caught, and that look of fear, because this ends up being one of Stern's plots, is that he can basically brainwash these people through these messages he sends through phones. Which is, man, what a strange concept, getting brainwashed by your phone. Definitely not something that happens in the real world. But it's, like you said, the way he plays that, it's just so good. It's like the fear is real. This is a man that spent 30 years behind locked doors, and is in no position to want to go back. And the fact that he's forced to do that is just, it's heartbreaking, like you said, and he plays it perfectly.
And then, it's followed up by Sam going to visit him in prison, trying to figure out what's going on, why he did it, what he might remember. And the way this scene is shot is so dang cool. The way it's all framed, it's basically just a shot reverse shot, just two people having a conversation. But they're in, like a prison interview booth, something we've seen a million times before, two people on either side of a glass. And we have like a shot of Sam profile, dead center frame, facing left. And then when it goes to Isaiah Bradley, he's dead center frame, profile, facing right, swapping back and forth, drawing parallels between these two characters. They've both been Captain America-ish, asterisk, et cetera, et cetera. And then as the conversation goes on, they sort of start to split, like in their conversation. Sam's like, "Hey, I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna get you out of here." And Isaiah Bradley, he's like, there's no escaping for me this time. I'm gonna die in here. Like he's almost sort of giving up on this point. And it ends with him saying, like, "You want to help me? Just forget about me. Never come back here. Like, don't let me drag you down." And as that descent happens, the camera angle changes on both of them, so they are no longer parallel. They're no longer shot the same way. It is a moment in the movie I'm watching where I'm like, man, they are making choices. Like, I'm not someone that's going to sit here and say, like, oh, all MCU movies are the same, cut from the same cloth. They all find their ways to have an identity, but there is typically an overall feel. So whenever you see, like, a director's hand like that or choices being made, like, it really pops. And I'm so in on this movie at this point. I think it's a compliment that's been lauded at The Winter Soldier a lot. People like to say, like, it's just a spy movie that happens to have Captain America. I don't know if I quite agree with that, but I get where they're coming from. I think up to, this movie doesn't carry this tone, I think, to the finish. But up to this point, like, I remember the first time watching it in theaters and even watching it again this week, I'm like, I just love that they're doing this. Like, having an identity, making choices, and then, of course, what's happening with the characters is great, too. I've already talked enough about how much I love the Isaiah Bradley character, but, yeah, this interview scene is so good.
It is. It's very, very good. Again, speaks to Carl Lumbly's ability. Obviously, Sam Wilson and his, Anthony Mackie, the chemistry he has with this character. I like that they introduced that character kind of specifically to interact with Sam. I think the notion of, like, they're never going to accept you because they never accepted me, the bitterness that he feels is very palpable and not at all unjustified. And so Sam is also trying to help him kind of be like, hey, this can happen now. And, the end of the Falcon and Winter Soldier, where he shows that, he's gotten Isaiah Bradley this, display at the Smithsonian to show people that this man existed and the contributions and the things that he did are not to be forgotten. I love the dynamic between these characters, and it's all you really need to know that Sam is driven by being like, no, this is not right, and I have to figure out who did this to him. And it's great. It comes off really well, and these scenes are a great example of that chemistry between them. And these are great picks. Speaking of chemistry with other characters, I do want to call out the scene that follows mine, which is when new Falcon Joaquin is in surgery. Sam is visited by one of our gratuitous cameos, Bucky Barnes, Sebastian Stan. Makes a brief appearance here, reuniting our titular Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And they have kind of a conversation that it may be a little redundant given the kind of overall story of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but it's a moment where Sam is kind of doubting himself because of what happened to Joaquin and just the fact that situation almost got out of control. It is a really good scene that reinforces their dynamic, and is just Sebastian Stan kind of taking that moment to be like, Steve chose you for a reason, and that doesn't mean that means something in itself. And you're taking it one step at a time. You're not supposed to just be Steve. No one's expecting you to just be Steve. And so it's this great sequence. Obviously, Sebastian Stan would then eventually go on to star in Thunderbolts as one of the lead characters there, and becomes a member. Have you seen Thunderbolts? Should I spoil this or not?
One, I've seen it. Two, we spoiled this on the podcast already.
Have we? Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, in that movie, one of the jokes they make at the end is with the new Avengers is that they are at odds with Sam Wilson's Avengers. So I'm actually interested to see how that all plays out throughout Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, to kind of see the dynamic between the new Avengers and the old Avengers.
The Avengers.
The West Coast Avengers. I don't know what they're going to call themselves. That's actually a thing, though. I've always loved that there's a team legitimately called the West Coast Avengers. And their only premise is that they're on the West Coast. that's it. But it's not as bad as the Great Lakes Avengers, I suppose, which is also a real thing. But it's a good sequence, reinforces their dynamic, which obviously means that putting that dynamic at odds in the future movies is going to be very interesting. But I always like seeing Sebastian Stan as Bucky. I think he's one of those kind of linchpins of the MCU at this point. One of those kind of been there from the beginning pieces that we still get to see now and then, similar to Mark Ruffalo, and just always good to see.
Yeah, not a lot of Phase 1 guys still around, huh? Thor, Bucky.
Of the original 6 Avengers,
I don't know if you count Mark Ruffalo. The character
Mark
still
Ruffalo
around,
is still there. Like, obviously, Hulk is still there. Hawkeye is still there. And Thor is still there from the original Avengers. And then we still got Bucky hanging around, too. Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury. There's a few.
Yeah,
the biggest thing is you've lost Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. That's really... And Scarlett Johansson, too.
Yeah.
Like, losing the 3 of them is basically losing the 3 biggest stars of the Avengers. So
and Colby Smulders. I haven't seen her.
You haven't seen Secret Invasion, have you?
No, I haven't. Does she die?
Yeah.
Do I leave that in? No one cares about
It's
that.
your call. It's your call. Your call. That was one of the controversial things about it, is that she died.
Okay. This is a gratuitous cameo, but it still fits pretty well. And I'm interested in what you said about it being redundant, because the lesson here is sort of the same lesson Sam learned over the course of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. In fact, I remember watching that show, which is one of the first TV shows. I think it was the second one after WandaVision. And sort of the arc of the show was like Sam gives up the shield because he doesn't think he can step into those shoes. But by the end of the show, he embraces it. And he debuts the new costume where he's Captain America. And I remember thinking, like, oh, so that's what these shows are going to do. They're going to, like, give you a deep dive into something, but they aren't going to be necessary. Like, if you were to go from Endgame to Brave New World, you're like, yeah, Sam Wilson took the shield at the end of Endgame. Now here he is at Captain America. But, like, if you want to see, you know, what all went into him taking the mantle, you could watch Falcon the Winter Soldier, but anyway, I was just trying to figure out how these shows were going to fit in, if they were going to be necessary. At the time, I was thinking, oh yeah, so these shows aren't really necessary. They're just for fans doing a deep dive. Obviously, it didn't stay that way. But yeah, this scene might be in here for people that maybe didn't watch that TV show, or just the show that Sam is continuing to have doubts. You know, maybe he hasn't totally.
Turns out it's not a binary thing. You can still have those doubts even after taking it over. But
I think it fits well. This is kind of like Tessa Thompson showing up in the Marvels, in that it's literally just one scene, and it's just, you know, this is what's cool about the MCU. You can have these characters show up because they all live in that world. So it'd be weird if they never cross paths, you know?
Yep.
I think it's good. Maybe unlike you, I #PP haven't been the biggest fan of Sebastian Stan in this role. Like, whenever he was like straight up Bucky, I was like, yeah, you're just gonna be a bad guy, aren't you? Yeah, you're already playing Winter Soldier before that happens. And then in Winter Soldier, he's just anyway. I won't #PP. I'm not gonna go down this whole road here, but like, it really wasn't until like Thunderbolts. That's the most I've ever liked Sebastian Stan. I think it finally clicks there. I really like where his character is, kind of just beyond all the Captain America stuff, beyond the Winter Soldier stuff. I think it really found a good groove that I really like. And I like it here. You know, Congressman Bucky Barnes makes a lot of sense for the character. It's good for the role. Their dynamic is great. I love how he gives this big speech, and then Sam Wilson calls him out about his speech writers writing it. A little bit. The last part, was it too heavy? Yeah, it's good. Good little banter.
It's good.
Yeah. It's good. Yeah, I like the scene a lot.
I do love in Thunderbolts where like he's got all the Thunderbolts like they're all like tied up, and he's just like, all right, you guys are gonna help me, and they're like, no, we're not gonna do that, and he's like, why? Where? You got somewhere to be? It's just the dynamic he builds with those characters over the course of that movie. Thunderbolts is really good, folks. I don't know what else to tell you. But
Andrew, quick question. I never read as much Marvel as DC. Thunderbolts. I'm familiar with the concept of the team from the comics. Does their name derive from Thunderbolt Ross?
No.
Okay. So just like in the MCU, it's just a coincidence that we have two completely separate entities that both use the name Thunderbolt?
Yes.
How weird.
They were created by Baron Zemo in the comic. Basically, there was a period of time where the Avengers disappeared. And so the Thunderbolts appeared as a team of superheroes to fill the void of the kind of gap left. And after the Avengers were gone, after I think it was Onslaught, where the Avengers disappeared, and they did that whole Heroes Reborn nonsense. And the reveal of the end of the first few issues of Thunderbolts is that they're actually the masters of evil in disguise. And that was a whole big deal. Like Baron Zemo played like Citizen V, who was meant to be the Captain America analog, and or Citizen 5, I don't remember which one it is. You read it, it says Citizen V, but I don't remember what it was supposed to be said out loud as. But but no, they were never like Justice Like Lightning was the tagline on the book. And so yeah, Thunderbolt Ross wasn't part of it originally. It was
That's just
Baron Zemo's
in a
thing.
world where Thunderbolt Ross exists, Zemo just calls the team the Thunderbolts, but it's purely coincidence. It's just, I don't know, it's just weird. Ben Hansen of MinMax pointed this out, and I felt similarly about it, that Miles Morales, his electric power, at least in the video game, I don't remember if it's in the comic, but it's called Venom. He calls it like a Venom punch. His power is called Venom powers.
Yeah, why would you?
And he's like, why would you do that? Like, you're a Spider-Man character. Why would you, like...
Yeah, why would you do that? No, and so, yeah, I agree completely. I was just like, what are we doing here? But that's a very specific. And just for the record, folks, that original Thunderbolts run is by Kurt Busiek and Mark Bagley, and they just started doing really nice, oversized paperbacks of it. Marvel's Epic collections. Those comics are really, really good. Kurt Busiek, it turns out. Kurt Busiek, like Mark Waid's probably my favorite superhero writer of all time, as far as just like body of work over time and how much I enjoy it. Grant Morrison, obviously another one of my favorites. I still like a lot of Jeff Johns, but Kurt Busiek is another really, really, really good comic book writer that I don't quite know gets the flowers that he deserves. He writes Thunderbolts, but he does this really, really good Avengers run with George Perez, amongst many, many others, where he does also does Avengers Forever, which is a really good Kang story. He also does the Ultron Unlimited arc within that run with George Perez, which is probably the best Ultron story that there's ever been. He also does a bunch of runs at DC on various different things, but then also does Astro City. If any of you are familiar with that long-running kind of original superhero universe, that was his whole big thing. He has not been able to write for years now, during persistent migraines that have caused him issues with being able to sit down and focus on like screens and things like that. And he's been unable to write because of it. But the work he's done kind of speaks for itself. So if you're looking for something interesting, I highly recommend Thunderbolt.
Good rec.
Not related
Good
at all
rec.
to what we're talking about, but
tangentially.
adjacent.
After the assassination incident, like the next scene, the next time that Sam sees Thunderbolt Ross is in the bunker, and everything's changed. Like immediately, Ross is kind of showing that he's still who he's always been, just very dismissive of Sam, and he straight up tells him you shouldn't even be in these situations. You're not Steve Rogers. Just immediately, earlier that day, asking him to restart the Avengers. Now he's saying like you're not even, you shouldn't even be part of this. And during that sort of berating speech, he tells him, "You better wise up, son," which a white viewer might see that and be like, yeah, he's an old man talking down to a kid. But obviously, it's hitting different for a black character. And Sam Wilson even remarks on that line specifically when he's talking to what's the character's name? His insider on the White House, Leela Taylor, played by Zosha Rockmore, a Secret Service agent working for the president that's been kind of feeding some information to Wilson. He's like, he called me son, like just an extra sting. And this kind of just goes back to like Harrison Ford being really good. Just another layer that he's playing, sort of just this bitter, angry, awful person underneath. We get that fun montage a little bit earlier where we see him like with a mustache in the big like public, rant that he went on. So funny that he shaved the mustache, because presumably had he not, Red Hulk would have had a little mustache, and how fun would that have been?
I don't think Red Hulk had a mustache in the comics, despite Thunderbolt Ross still having a mustache. So,
unreadable.
Yeah, that's actually the real issue everybody had with Red Hulk in the comics, was that he didn't have a mustache. But also, like, if you're trying to conceal his identity and like make it obvious who he isn't, then you're probably not going to give him a mustache to be like, oh wow, turns out Red Hulk looks exactly like Thunderbolt Ross, but it's not Thunderbolt Ross. But no, so I could definitely understand why they were like, okay. I also like how Red Hulk clearly looks like Harrison Ford. Like, I
genuinely like that though.
Like the Hulk, I don't know that the Hulk has ever looked like Mark Ruffalo until they made him like Smart Hulk. Like they purposely designed the Hulk to look like him. Like, yeah, Red Hulk, they were clearly like, yeah, buddy, that's Harrison Ford, just in case you weren't sure.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I also like the line, because I feel like they always acknowledge recast. Sam Wilson's like, oh, I'm still getting used to the new look, and like it's a whole new actor standing in there, like it's it's just sort of a fun wink, just like they did with Don Cheadle, where he's like, yeah, I'm here, get used to it, and again, two meanings to the line, pretty fun.
It is.
Let's talk more about that Hulk transformation, Andrew. We finally get it at the press conference at the finale of this movie. It looks good. I mean, they kind of got this down by now. I really love the extra touch, though, whereas the clothes rip off, they almost like burn. Like they're like singed and like turning into ash. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, because the whole kind of thing is the Red Hulk is supposed to like irradiate energy actively when he's the Red Hulk. Like he's got this whole kind of like meltdown piece that he's supposed to have. So I do like that, like, with this kind of and I'm guessing the idea is that the gamma levels he's got are even higher because he's been taking these pills for years now. So like the gamma level in his blood has just been escalating higher and higher and higher, and so that might even lead to it more too, is that like it's so bottled up that when it finally does unleash, there's this almost like I said, like a nuclear meltdown. It's like you said, the only issue here really, and it's not any fault of the film on its own, is that you just know it's coming. And the thing is, even if you don't know it's coming, you're going to figure out that it's coming, which is not inherently a problem. But like the fact that they have the teases where like he's starting to kind of bulge out, but he stops it. Like, yeah, we know what's coming here now. And I don't know if the idea is, you're watching, you're like, oh, they're going to be able to hold it back. But like, you're eventually going to be like, yeah, you're not going to tease that if you're not going to do it. It is, and that leads to our kind of third act big brawl down finale, Captain America versus the Red Hulk. And it's always wild to me that, like, there was a lot of people that were semi-critical of this because they were just like, how is Captain America supposed to fight the Hulk? And my response to that is the same every single time. The same way Batman fights Superman. Like, guys, it's not that hard. It's really not that hard. I remember when there were rumors that when Michael Keaton was going to come in as Batman to the DCEU, they were going to do the swap with Ben Affleck and Michael Keaton, which is still one of, like, don't get me wrong, I would have watched every bit of it, but it's still one of the stranger ideas I've heard from like a major film studio. You know what? People don't like Ben Affleck as Batman. We're going to replace him with the 20 years older Michael Keaton.
As I say, it's
like
more than 8-year difference.
Yeah, like it's a 20-plus year difference. But there were all these people that were just kind of like, am I supposed to really buy old man Michael Keaton fighting somebody like Deathstroke? And I was like, yeah? Like, what do you like? Why suddenly is it now that's the bridge too far?
Yeah.
Like, of all the things we've watched in comic book movies, of all the times we've watched Batman fight Superman, now suddenly old man Batman versus Deathstroke is when somebody goes, hey, wait a minute. Now we're getting a little too unrealistic. No, dude. Get a job. But also I like that about the fight. That like Sam has to keep kind of on his feet, on his toes, because this guy, if the Hulk gets a single blow on him,
He's toast.
yeah, you're getting swept off the pavement. You're getting mopped off the pavement at that point. Like it's and so I like that we get this kind of very deliberate, very methodical approach from Sam to fight Red Hulk. We get plenty of smashing and crashing. Don't get me wrong. I like the setting here, the cherry blossoms. I think that makes for a really unique backdrop. I also love cherry blossom trees. We have a bunch of them here in Chicago at one of the museums, and they're also obviously in Japan. If you go during the right season, they're very prominent there as well. So they just make for a very cool, interesting backdrop. And it's a fun fight. It's exactly the kind of comic booky stuff I expect. And then eventually, Sam talks him down. He uses his superpower, speaking.
Yeah. I mean, so first time we see Sam Wilson is Winter Soldier, right? And that's when he's like a counselor for veterans, which is ultimately why he gets what Steve sees in him, and a big part of the reason like he gets the mantle of Captain America is for like his compassion. And as I said earlier, that's kind of his superpower, and that's how he ends up winning the fight. It's pretty cool. Also gets to show off the cool vibranium wings. That's also neat. Hulk rips one of them off, but that last one still hangs in there. He gets that good stab on him. But yeah, it talks him down so that he transforms back. That's how he ultimately beats him. I do like Hulk Rampage, though, even before Sam shows up. Like, it's just a striking image to see Red Hulk on top of the White House. Like, it just looks cool.
Yeah.
And I just see in some reviews, like, them thinking the MCU is, like, I don't think there's anything too overt here. I don't think they're making any grand statements about any specific presidents. I think it's just a striking image. And I think I like that part of the fight the most, like Hulk like taking down that helicopter and kind of just destroying. I do like that Sam wins with his words, though. I like that for the character. And that wraps up our movie, Andrew. That wraps up our pretty good Captain America movie. Again, a movie that is so weird to like even think about it being the quote unquote lowest rated of the MCU.
It doesn't make any sense. But I liked it quite a bit. And so ultimately we get a couple of wrap ups. Obviously that is where we get the big Ross Betty reunion where they're just gonna sit and talk since he's in a jail cell now. We get the reveal that he turned himself in, like purposely stepped down from the office of the president, because obviously the Hulk can't be president. This isn't the Squadron Supreme where Batman's president. Sorry, not Batman, Nighthawk. But it's it's one of the funniest things to me about the Squadron Supreme comic, because before Watchmen there was this book that Mark Grunwald did called The Squadron Supreme, which the Squadron Supreme were introduced in the comics as the Squadron Sinister, which were just an analog for the Justice League the Avengers could fight. But they eventually revealed that there was a heroic version of the Squadron called the Squadron Supreme, who are just the Justice League. That's what they are. And eventually this leads to a 12-issue series by Mark Grunwald. I forget who draws it. No, it's not Mike Zeck. He does Secret Wars. But in that book, the world they're in a separate parallel universe. The world is degenerated so much that the Squadron Supreme just decide they're going to rule the world because they think it's the better option. Not in like a you all can't be tripped, but like we can fix this basically. Not that like, they want to be dictators over the planet, but just that
we would just be good leaders, so let's do it. Yeah.
But the irony is that Batman's alter ego essentially is the president. And so it'd be literally like Superman saying the Justice League needs to fix the world while Bruce Wayne is president. And he basically says, you guys can't do this. And they're like, why not? You're the president. And he's like, no, like I got elected president. I was chosen by the people to be their leader. I'm doing my best to lead them forward, but like you can't just declare yourselves leaders of the world. And that's part of the central conflict throughout the book is this idea that one, it's not as easy as they thought it would be, but two, just that dynamic of like you're the good guys, but you're placing yourself in charge. And does that mean you're still the good guys? So another wreck coming out of this is Mark Grunwald's Squadron Supreme, which is before Watchmen, not before Watchmen, the Watchmen prequels, but it's actually written before Watchmen and is actually a very, very interesting superhero deconstruction story told before Watchmen that grapples with that notion of like, well, what if superheroes were in charge, and presents a very nuanced take that maybe it's not going to be quite what you think it is. So I highly recommend that as well. I don't remember why I started talking about this. I lost it.
I'm not sure either.
But just the idea of like, Ross being the president and being in that place, I guess that just spun out of like the idea of the Hulk being president. But getting back to Ross, like Ross does get incarcerated in the raft. That's where he does get his reunion with Betty, and the
leader teases Secret Wars.
And then
presumably.
the leader teases, he warns of a coming attack from other worlds, which I guess presumably is the multiverse. Or potentially Doctor Doom or whatever.
I want to say this about the movie, Andrew. Look, hashtag PP, hashtag Positivity Podcast. I think we've made our case that we like the movie and it's pretty good. But I will say, like, if I were looking at it with a critical eye, I personally might say the final fight with Red Hulk doesn't hit as hard as I feel like it should. And I'm not quite sure why. I think maybe because Ross versus Captain America doesn't seem to be the driving force in the movie, so we kind of take a swerve at the end, aren't as emotionally invested as we should be. I think maybe like the character of Joaquin Torres isn't fitting in as smoothly as Sam Wilson did back in the day. So there's criticisms to be had of the movie, but ultimately it's a good movie with a lot to like and a lot to dig into. And I just want to make a point to say that because with the MCU in particular, but really it feels like a lot of film discourse on the internet, things get boiled down to either it's a cinematic masterpiece or it's garbage. And people will be like, oh, the MCU lost its way. Look at Falcon the Winter Soldier. Like, it's just, completely off the rails or whatever. And, like, you can have criticisms of something or feel a certain way, feel like something doesn't work without saying it's garbage. And hopefully I'm preaching to the choir here. I think people listen to this podcast maybe know this, but I'm just always on the side of I want to encourage better film discussion. And if you're looking at things in such a binary thumbs up or thumbs down, like you're missing a lot of good stuff.
It's a lot easier to like things than people realize. And it's a lot easier. Here's the thing that I've probably said this before on this podcast, but one of the things that I've really tried to internalize is, am I adding anything to the discussion when I say almost anything? And the answer generally is no. But I still like talking, which creates a real conundrum. But like film discourse in general is just, it's gotten to a point where like, and like, when the MCU was at its peak, like everybody was on board. Like I remember seeing a video once that was like, they clearly should have stopped the MCU at Endgame. Like they should have just stopped making those movies. And that's one of those things that's like so bafflingly like just a complete utter misunderstanding of like to basically say, that movie you made that just made like $3 billion, like don't do that again. Like, or I guess people are like, they should
Disney should stop doing live action remakes and like Lilo and Stitch makes $1 billion. Like,
right.
Lots of families took the kids to that movie and had a good time. It's like, why
Moana
should they...
2. I don't know. Did we talk about Moana 2 on this podcast? Like a movie that feels like it came and went. Moana 2 made $1 billion.
Wow.
Like, no one talked about Moana 2 and it made $1 billion. And it's like, okay, guys, And that's the kind of stuff that makes me realize that the internet really is just like this niche pocket voice. Like the new Jurassic Park, like, it's tearing up the box office in a lot of ways. Like it's literally at 656 million worldwide. Like Jurassic World Rebirth, the one that like got mediocre reviews, has still made $650 million. And it's like, it's that thing where I've realized that like people really just don't have it. Film discourse is particularly bad about this, as is pro wrestling discourse, as is pretty much any fandom. But there is a misunderstanding that if you are a fan of something for long enough, you are now an expert in that thing. So people will extrapolate, hey, I've loved movies for my whole life, but then they'll try to extrapolate that into, and now I can talk about how the film business works. And I'm like, but you don't know that though. You don't understand how that works. Like there's people out there saying, oh, well, 700 million is the number Superman needs to break even. And it's like James Gunn himself has been like, no, that's not true. Like, I don't know what you're getting that from. But people still cling to it and say it because there is a larger problem about what people call the death of expertise. We've reached a point where if someone's an expert in something, it has led a certain group of people to be even more skeptical of them. If like, it's like, you're an expert on this. It's like, oh, well, what do you know? Like that kind of thing. But there's also an increasing wave of what I call ignorance in expertise, where people take their own knowledge of something as expertise, despite no indication that what they know should be taken as expertise. Obviously, you get a lot of this with, just the I did my own research types, but it's particularly bad. Like pro wrestling, people will talk about like, people still say, oh, well, AEW is spinning around the drain. And I'm like, no, like, it's not. Like, you don't have to like it, but like, I don't know why you're assuming that it's just terrible and dying, or people are like, oh, WWE is about to do this, or people are like, they presume to know things that they just don't know, but they speak with such confidence about it, and it's mind-numbing.
Social media has really incentivized like having a take, like you have like a hot take. Like,
you want a hot take, Chris? I have a hot take for you.
What is it?
Do you want to hear? I was saying, I'm asking. You're gonna.
Yeah. No, I want to hear. I want to hear your hot take, Andrew.
Tarantino's best movie, Jackie Brown. Moving on.
Whoa, really? Is that sincere, or is that you want to push a hot take?
I love Jackie Brown. I
do too. It's got the greatest actor.
At bare minimum, it is the most deeply underrated of his filmography because nobody talks about it at all.
It's the only movie he made with the greatest actor of all time in it. So I mean, that's got to count for something. Interesting. Interesting. I like that take, Andrew.
I really caught up. I caught up one of my employees real bad with that. We were talking about something. I was like, "You want to hear a hot take? Jackie Brown is the best Tarantino." And I thought I broke his brain for like 20 seconds, where he was just like, "What? Whoa, what?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's right. Chew on that."
I think there's nothing. Okay, so if someone said like, "Yeah, I haven't been into the MCU since Endgame," I'd be like, hey, perfectly reasonable opinion, and maybe we can like talk about it. Maybe you can tell me like why you fell off, whatever. That's totally cool. But that tweet doesn't get retweets, Andrew. So people say, oh, it's objectively garbage since Endgame. Like this isn't my opinion. This is a universal truth, and you're an idiot. And this, we've lost the sauce at that point. So, that's it. Hot take. Captain America: Brave New World is pretty good.
Yeah, it's fun.
We are almost done with the month, Andrew, with the theme with comic book movie month. I think is what it is. Maybe is it called Superhero Month? I might not have been consistent with what I'm calling this month, but you know what we're doing. We're revisiting recent comic book movies, going back to our roots, as we've said, and it's been a fun ride. We got one more left coming out next week, but right now, Andrew, it's time. You know what we do. We enter AA. It's time to ask Andrew. It's the part of the show where I ask you a question and you have to answer it. If you would like to ask Andrew a question, you can do so by joining our Discord. There's a link right there for you in the show notes. Come and join us. What are you waiting for? There's a channel for you to drop some cues. So sometimes I go in here to find a question to ask Andrew, and that's what I'm doing today. Flamin' Queso asks, you ready for this, Andrew?
Uh-oh.
What species of turtles are the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I don't care.
You can't say that, Andrew. It's in the contract. I told you, you can't just say, I don't know, I don't care, every episode.
I don't know, man. I don't know, box turtles? I don't know what a box.
Yeah, I don't know. I really have no idea. I don't.
Yeah, like,
there's-
who
I mean,
cares?
there's.
I don't know, man. But Jesus,
I think the answer is in the question. What species are they? Mutant ninja.
yeah,
of the
they're-
mutant
of the
ninja
of the
variety.
of the teenage variety.
Yeah,
But,
exactly. I do
um,
think I'm trying to remember. There's that scene of them as. Do we see them as actual live turtles in the 1990 movie? Or I know we have like the baby puppets that say pizza. I can't remember if we see
there's
them
a
as.
there's a clip of them as actual turtles. I just presumed they were some domesticated box turtle type thing.
I'm pretty good with turtle species.
although-
Let me see if I can find that.
I get maybe not box turtles because box turtles tend to be more domed, right? I don't know that they're
Yeah.
super domed. So
I don't know what to Google to find that picture, so I'm not gonna. I did TMNT 1990 baby, and it's just the puppets. So I
did
don't know.
TMNT 90 origin scene, and that got me the clip. So let's see. Let's see. No, that's him as a thing. Where are they? There they are. Okay. So yeah, in this, they are real ugly dirt. It's an out of focus picture. Like I can snip it if you want. Send it to you.
I think the honest answer, if Flaming Queso is looking for a real
whatever
answer,
was on set.
yes, and like going like even like the comics and stuff, they're just turtles. Like I don't think they were based on any specific species. However, I will throw out there that the animated show Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles specifically based each turtle on a different species of turtles. I don't know off the top of my head the 4 species they used, except for Leonardo, who is very clearly a red-eared slider, because they give him the trademark red lines by his eyes, just like red-eared sliders have. I have a red-eared slider, but his name is Raphael. It doesn't line up with the show. And then I see like
Terrible.
Michelangelo has like spots on his skin. So again, I don't know if anybody wants to do a deep dive on what 4 species they used. Have at it, but
what kind of turtles?
yeah,
What's the other turtle that you have?
my other turtle's a mud turtle. The Mississippi
I sent you the
mud
picture.
turtle.
Yeah.
Right. It is blurry, Andrew. You're right about that. They basically look like red-eared sliders, but I can't tell if they have the red on their face, but that's what they look like. They're pretty wide, though. I don't know.
Enhance. Just print
yeah,
the damn
so
thing.
I think they're just turtles, Queso. They're just turtles.
I have never thought that hard about it. I know that there are different types of turtles, and that's very turtlist of me to suggest they're all the same. But it's I've never thought that hard about it. I know the one is I know that which one's the turtle, Toka or Razor?
Razor, because he has a razor sharp
He's a snapping turtle.
spikes.
That's all.
Oh
I got
yeah,
there.
yeah.
So he's something. But yeah, that's all I got.
Well, there we go. That's why people come to this podcast, Andrew, for our
Whatever that was.
clearly vast knowledge of whatever the heck we just stumbled through. That's what keeps us coming back week after week. Speaking of, next week we're wrapping up this month with Venom: The Last Dance, Venom 3. We will have covered every Venom movie at that point, Andrew. How about that? So come back for that, and just remember that maybe not every movie is great.
But all movies have greatness.
Thank you to Mark Benavides for singing our theme song. Check him out on Instagram at NotThatMarkAnthony, and thanks to Mitch for the music. You can follow him on Twitter at I'm a Biggie Boy. Check our show notes for the SoundCloud link. Check out our store on TeePublic for some Best of the Rest merch. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. That's the only way that we grow. Follow us on social media at BOTRcast. Thank you.
But now we're here with Captain America 4.
And Captain America 4 is what we are. That's terrible. What am I doing?
Yeah, what are you doing?
I don't know.
Cut it out. Will it hit like Endgame did? Probably not, but it's still going to be really cool.
1 second. Hey, buddy. You on the night-night? I love you. Good night. Can you tell Andrew happy birthday?
Happy birthday.
Thanks, Bruce.
He said thanks, Bruce. All right. Good night, buddy. Be good for mom.
Okay.
Guys are adorable.